Now return to open session. I'll first announce the reportable actions taken during the closed session in regards to item 4C. A settlement in OAH case number 2018-08-1171 was approved in the amount of $52,500. In regards to item 4D, a settlement in case number 2018-05 was approved in the amount of $90,000. Can I ask for a motion for approval of the agenda, including time limits, please? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any public comments on the consent agenda? Can I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, or do any trustees wish to remove anything, or student trustees wish to remove anything from the consent agenda for discussion?
Can you remove item D?
Item
13D?
13D will be removed. Okay, can I ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda with item 13D removed, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda with 13D removed.
Second.
Do you want to double check, Chuck? Taro's asking me for you to double check that you want to the approved, the revised course of study for nonfiction
Yeah,
removed?
I
Okay,
just
good.
have a
She
quick
just wanted to
question.
make sure it
Yeah.
wasn't the follow one. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. All right, now is time for the student trustee reports. And why don't we start with Maddie?
So, to start off with Drake, our drama department is going to have a performance this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're doing 4 performances of She Kills Monsters, which will be a fun play, sort of like sci-fi and definitely very adventure and fun, and all the costumes look very fun. Everyone's very excited about that. So there's a performance Wednesday and Thursday, and then 2 performances Friday. And then, so last week, Drake had a voting walkout slash sort of celebration, I suppose. So at the end of 3rd period, there was a walkout, and the students gathered around our senior tree, and there were registration forms, so students could get pre-registered to vote if they wanted to, or registered if they were of age. But if you're 16, you can get pre-registered. And then there's also speeches about what voting meant to students and why it's important to participate in our democracy. And it just showed how I feel like students recently have been getting very energized about voting and how important it is. Our wellness center has been doing a campaign on healthy relationships. And instead of focusing on making kids aware of signs of unhealthy relationships, they use this campaign to focus on what a healthy relationship looks like. So they had lots of posters about good relationships and things that you should do in order to make your relationships better. And then, so the smoke has been a big talking point for a lot of the students especially, and I know a lot of people didn't want to come to school today or last Friday. And anecdotally, I do feel like a lot of people weren't at school, be that just random circumstances or for some reason related to the smoke. But the people who did come didn't seem to completely mind having, feel like it was a terrible thing to have to come to school. But they were the ones who came, so that's a bias in itself. And then finally, some exciting piece of news. Drake is finally building a bike cage. So this is something a lot of people have been wanting for a long time. So we have bike racks, but if a kid accidentally leaves their bike at school overnight, even if it's locked up, it almost always gets stolen. And we can see it on our cameras. It's usually not by another student. It's usually by some adult that's come and steals like kids' bikes. So where the Drake Fund is giving us money to build a cage where kids can put their bikes in the beginning of the day, and it will be locked and then opened at the end of the day, and kids can get their bikes. But then eventually staff will lock it up again, and it'll be locked all night. So then in case someone does forget their bike, it'll be safe in there.
That's great.
That's it.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Maddie.
Okay.
Charlotte.
So at Tamascal, sort of one of the ongoing just problems that we've been faced is the parking. As of right now, there's only 7 student parking spaces and then 2 visitor parking spaces that sometimes students park in because you won't get penalized for parking in those. You will get penalized for parking in staff spots if you're caught, which most of the time you are. Sometimes you get away with it. But again, there's only 7 student spaces for the 30 to 40 to 50 students who actually drive. You can park at Piper Park at Tamascal, but a lot of students really hate parking there. It's pretty far walk, and if you arrive at school on time, you won't get to your class on time if you have to park at Piper. Another thing that's been going on is our school yearbook. We haven't received enough money from our student donations, and a possibility is that if we don't receive that money, it will be shut down. That means the entire school will not receive a yearbook this year. If we do receive that money, though, we will continue with our yearbook program, and then it'll be great as always. Okay. Team program. They just watched the movie, The Hate U Give. They loved it. They thought it was amazing. They learned a really great message from it, and they really want to watch more videos like that and just learn the messages. And a big thing that's been happening is CEC, independent study, and also the teachers have been going on tours of the Wellness Center and learning about the Wellness Center in Redwood. Thank you, Redwood. Since we don't have that at our school, we've been borrowing Redwood's Wellness Center and learning about the things we can use there, sort of the resources. It's been really great. Sort of everyone's been liking it. All the advisories have been going over. And the teachers have had a workshop to learn about how to reduce anxiety, stress, and school-related fears, which is big at Tamascal since it's a very homework-based program. Sometimes we'll have, like in core itself, you can have 10 to 12 hours of homework a week, so it can be very stressful, and sort of having teachers understand how to deal with that is nice. Another very fun thing that we had this week was a campus spirit event. It was Brad's birthday. Brad is our science/math teacher, and a student bought him a cake, and everyone had cake. And when I mean everyone, I pretty much mean the entire campus. And it was fun, and we just sort of had a party for Brad. Nice.
Very nice, thank you. So, Kara?
So at TAM, our journalism program, the TAM News, we all went to Chicago, and I believe that we saw the Bark there. So that was cool. I saw the Bark sweatshirts, and we waved. We were in our TAM News sweatshirts, and that was cool. We did not win any awards from NSPA, but we won 6 awards from the Columbia National Press Association, which was a lot, and we got the Silver Crown again, so that means we were in the top 20 papers in the U.S. Our drama department just finished one of their big shows, Our Town, and they're having Hay Fevers performing the week after break. And they had their biggest fundraiser, but it was not that successful, so that was not good. We had an active shooter drill last Thursday, which everyone thought was kind of interesting considering it was a day or two after a shooting. So the administration chose to, it had been planned a month in advance, so they chose to keep going with it, but a lot of students thought that was a very interesting call. Our department's putting on their winter art fair, which is really cool. If you've never seen it at TAM, they set up all these lights, and it's all outdoors. They make little, drawing and painting makes buttons, ceramics makes mugs and plates for people to buy to fundraise for their program, and it's always really cool. And they have, stations to try pottery and to try doing art for those of us who cannot, to pretend like we can. Leadership is, this week they started looking into ways to help the fire victims and seeing what we can do, because last year we did a bunch of shoes and blankets for the Sonoma fire, so they're trying to see if we can do something like that again. Our AIM, our One Learning community on campus, just went into like documentary mode, where they just film a documentary for the rest of the semester, which is really cool. And our wellness and peer resource class have been doing weekly lessons on Wednesdays about like self-care, coming into finals, and like kind of getting prepared before finals hit, so you're not dead during finals. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Kara,
Yeah.
what do you mean that students thought it was interesting about, going ahead with the active shooter drill?
I just think some kids thought it was just in my classes, they were just kind of talking about how like they thought it was slightly insensitive in a way, that since it's been so many over and over again, to like, we haven't really talked about them in school, but yet we still chose to have this drill like immediately after. So it's kind of like bringing up the subject without actually addressing the subject. They're just kind of like, they thought it was kind of like not the most well thought out plan by administration. I don't know, kind of like too close. Still, like everyone was kind of like shaken up, and they're like, oh, now we're gonna pretend like we're having a shooter here still. I don't know.
That's actually very helpful. Thank you, Michael, for asking that, because I interpreted it differently, and hearing you explain it that way is very helpful. I can understand that.
Okay, so at Redwood, big news. Obviously, Measure J passed for the whole district, so that was super exciting.
And did you give your mother an extra big hug for that?
She's so excited. Yeah. Redwood leadership helped wave signs in front of the parking lots a couple mornings, so people were really excited in leadership. We were helping spread the word to people and their parents. And then last week we stood out there again and waved signs to say thank you.
Tam did that too. I think Drake did too, actually. Drake did. All you guys did. That was great.
Leadership is wrapping up a Deck My Room fundraiser this week. Deck My Room is an organization that collects monetary donations to help decorate children's hospital rooms. So we do fundraisers about every couple months in advisory. Each classroom rep has a little box that they pass around for donations, and then the class that raises the most money will get like I think it's like a Jamba Juice party or something. So that's been going on for the last, I think, 2 weeks, and this is the last week they're going to do it. New bathrooms were open near the portables and on one side of the main building over there to help relieve crowding in the hallways. There's going to be a new parking system that will hopefully be implemented on December 3rd, but it depends if the carpool spots get painted in time. So it'll be either December 3rd or I think December 10th. So permits will be rolled out to students, the carpool spaces will all be painted, and then students will be assigned spaces before that date. And then I think this week is the last week to go out to lunch, because part of the new plan is that it'll be a closed campus. So yeah, our BARC went to Chicago, like Kara said. And Jacob Kleonsky, who's a senior and a reporter for the BARC, he won the 4th best sports story in the nation for a story about Redwood surfers. So that was super impressive. He submitted it himself, but then the whole class was there to sort of see him win. So that was really cool. Performers from the San Francisco Jazz visited campus in late October, and they performed with some of the music students. Cross-country MCALs were last Wednesday. Redwood had an individual winner for the boys, Liam Anderson, who's always in the news. And then Helena Yonku is actually a freshman, and she got 3rd place for the girls, so that was really exciting. And then there was a newspaper article published about her, so really cool for her. Redwood Night Live is having dodgeball on the 30th. They're always doing sort of activities to bring together the school. I think they've done laser tag and other sort of nighttime activities. Right now, leadership's putting together some Thanksgiving baskets. So the Wellness Center decides on a few students who they think would most benefit from these baskets. It's sort of a full Thanksgiving meal. So the Wellness Center decides, and then the baskets are given anonymously to these students. We're going to have a trivia night on November 29th. We did it last year, and it was really successful. A lot of teams showed up to compete, so leadership's working on making the questions for that right now. And then because of the smoke, a couple things were canceled. The Turkey Bowl, which is sort of a fun dodgeball game between juniors and staff and then seniors and staff. That was supposed to be today and tomorrow, but they've postponed it because of the smoke. And then drama has a dance-a-thon where they just dance for like hours until it ends, I guess. I don't know. And that was also postponed. But drama is still planning to have their 1X begin early next month.
Very nice, thank you. And next, we will go to the superintendent report.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So tonight, I just wanted to, obviously on a lot of people's minds are the fires and the smoke in the area. So one of the values that came to mind for me has been compassion lately. And that, our thoughts and prayers are with the fire victims. They're both suffering loss and an unknown future. Paradise was almost completely wiped out. And while we're feeling the effects of the smoke and the poor quality, I do want to express that I've heard the concerns that everybody has raised, or not everybody, the people that have raised them have raised, and that we do have compassion, but we are working collaboratively with the county, with the County Office of Education, also with the Marin County Public Health Officer and the Office of Health and Human Services. And in times like these, we follow their lead. They're the experts in these things. So we listen and we work collaboratively with them. So I do want to encourage everyone to take care of themselves. And if someone has a sensitivity or is feeling acute effects, that they stay home and that they follow direction while at school to stay inside as much as possible. And that we will continue to monitor the conditions. But I just wanted to really think for a moment about the people who are really struggling with some really devastating effects on their lives moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to trustee considerations, and item A is discuss and take action on proposed resolution 18-14, agreement with the Public Agency Retirement Services for a supplementary retirement plan.
From PARS, and he's here to present. Sorry, I'm standing over here. Oh, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you. If you could just...
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Madam Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Topia. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Again, my name is Ryan Acasio. I'm a Vice President with PARS. I've been with the company now for 20 years, and I'm here to make a presentation on this retirement incentive that we've been working with the district in designing and potentially moving forward with. Just a quick background, PARS, Public Agency Retirement Services, sort of as our name implies, we work with public agencies, cities, counties, special districts, school districts, community colleges, and we are administrators of retirement plans, so we do the consulting and administration of these plans. We're the third largest multiple employer retirement system in the state, over 1,400 retirement plans, and we are based in Orange County down south. On the educational side, we are probably best known for the design and administration of these early retirement incentives. Worked with districts, big and small, all across the state, some in the county. More recently, Sausalito Marin, we did a plan a couple years ago. But as big as LA Unified and San Diego Unified to smaller districts with one or two retirements. So that's sort of our niche, is designing these incentives to address challenges for districts and hopefully help them with their budgetary challenges. And ultimately, with these retirement incentives, what we're looking to do is incentivize folks that are on the higher end of the salary schedule to retire earlier. And the replacement salary of a new employee is what we are trying to quantify and look at to see if there is enough savings to benefit the district. Ultimately, we are trying to encourage more folks than what would naturally retire through no incentive, and hopefully that can create either budget savings for the district or even potentially prevent layoffs. Oftentimes, I think in past years we've seen this used as a reorganizational tool as well, so there are a number of uses for this potential early retirement incentive that could be beneficial to the district. And sort of the process for doing this is, ultimately we offer a complementary analysis to the district to sort of kick the tires on a potential plan to see what that would look like. If the board decides to approve the resolution, that would open up an enrollment window, about a 45-day to 60-day enrollment window. PARs would then come out to the district for orientation meetings to sort of explain the offering and what this means to the participant, and if they were interested, how they would go about signing up for this. We're simply here to sort of present the facts so that they can make an informed decision that best suits their own individual personal situation or needs. At the end of that enrollment window, we would kind of go through the process again of doing a fiscal analysis based on the actual enrollments into the plan, and then with those actual numbers we would determine, is there a savings associated with this incentive or is there a cost, at which point we would present those results to the district, and the district would then be able to make the decision based on those results, yes, we want to move forward, or no, we want to rescind. And part of the design is that the district has the ability to analyze or evaluate each individual group. The way we've designed this plan is we're looking at certificated and classified non-management groups. So the potential is that you can look at each individual one. They can go, maybe just one and not the other, or both, or that's sort of at the discretion of the district, because you want the plan to be successful in order to move forward. If it didn't work out, you'd have that ability to rescind. If the plan moved forward, employees would resign at the end of the school year. If the plan is canceled because of either lack of participation or the numbers just didn't work out, the offer and resignation letters would then be rescinded. Ultimately, the district is looking to meet fiscal and operational goals, and that's sort of at the discretion of the district to evaluate those numbers. And the proposed design of this plan is we're looking at using an 80% of final pay, and that's used to purchase a tax-sheltered annuity program through the RSC 403B plan. These contributions is sort of a fixed cost to the district, meaning that 80% of the eligible employees' final salary would be used to purchase an annuity on their behalf, and that would be the fixed cost to the district. There wouldn't be any additional costs or liability to the district if, for example, if the participant lived beyond their mortality, that would be sort of the risk absorbed by the insurance company. There wouldn't be any further obligations to the district. These districts are funded over a 5-year period following the termination of employment. And as I mentioned, this is used to purchase an annuity through Pacific Life Insurance Company. The annuity provides various benefit options and favorable tax treatment, which I'll get into shortly. Just some information on Pacific Life Insurance Company. They're the insurance company that PARS works with on this retirement incentive. Our association with Pacific Life is strictly based on their strong financial ratings and their ability to service and provide for this annuity. They are ultimately taking on this mortality risk of paying out these benefits. So as I sort of mentioned earlier, there's no further obligation to the district. This is sort of borne by the insurance company. They are rated highly amongst the rating agencies, and PARS does their due diligence every year to ensure that they maintain those ratings. And PARS does not receive any additional commissions or compensation from Pacific Life Insurance Company. So our association with them is strictly based on their strong financial ratings and their ability to service the annuity. And these are guaranteed by Pacific Life, so there wouldn't be any further obligation to the district. As I sort of touched on earlier, the annuity provides 14 different benefit options available to the participant. From the participant standpoint, there is no better or worse option. These are all individual decisions. Each benefit option is actuarially equivalent, so it's sort of in their best interest to speak to their financial advisors, family members, to sort of determine what makes the most sense for them. But the first three options, 1, 2, and 3, are sort of the lifetime payments available to them. Option 1, if they select that, would be just a monthly payment. Upon their death, that benefit would stop. If they have a beneficiary they want to include as part of that, they have the ability to select option 2, which is a joint survivor, meaning that that benefit would pay for the lifetime of 2 people, the participant and their beneficiary. So upon their deaths, that benefit would stop. Option 3 is sort of a variation of option 1 with an insurance component, meaning that it would pay out for a minimum of 10 years. So if that participant selected that option and let's say passed away after 5 years, it would continue to pay out for an additional 5 years for that 10-year period. If they live to another 30, 40 years, it'll pay out for that remainder, based on their life. So it's a guarantee of at least 10 years. And then options 5 through 15 are higher fixed-term payments paid over a shorter period of time. So option 5 would be 60 monthly payments. So these are higher dollar amounts, and there's some additional tax benefits associated with options 5 through 9. That's sort of determined by the IRS because those are paid out under 10 years. They have the ability to roll those over into either an IRA or to another qualified plan. So it sort of provides additional tax-saving benefits to the participant if they wanted to select those. Next slide is just a sample illustration based on the averages of the group that illustrate each of the 14 different payment options. So based on the 80% of final salary, these are sort of the options that would be illustrated or potentially available to them. If the plan is offered, each individual would receive a customized illustration based on their specific situation, meaning based on their specific salary as well as their age. So this is just a sample illustration to reflect what that illustration would look like based on the average of the group. As I mentioned, options 5 through 9 are starred because those have additional rollover options if they wanted to take advantage of that, where it could be rolled over either to an IRA or to another qualified plan. So sort of the two groups, certificated non-management and classified non-management, you can kind of see the potential options that would be available based on the average of that group. Next slide is just a review of the assumptions that we used, eligibility requirements that they would be, the certificated would be similar to the STRS eligibility requirements of age 55 with 5 years of district service or age 50 with 30. For the classified, we mimic the PERS eligibility requirements of age 50 with 5 years of service. The benefit level is 80% of their final pay would be used to purchase an annuity on their behalf. And then we just sort of lay out the assumptions that we use for replacement salary, retiree health, the rising pension costs associated with STRS and PERS associated with those existing employees, and that ultimately this would be funded over a 5-year period. And the next slide is just a representation of our analysis or our calculation model. with an incentive. We are looking at the compensation differential between a retiring employee and the replacement employee. And hopefully that compensation differential can be enough that would generate savings to the district. But part of the overall package of the incentive is, we're looking at additional costs associated with this. So meaning that these folks that would retire are now going to transition to retirement and would have retirement health care costs. We factor that as well as the cost of the incentive itself. In this case, we're looking at 80% of their final pays being used to purchase that annuity. The cost of PARS fees is also factored in as part of that, and we charge 5% on top of the annuity contribution. We also factor in the cost of natural attrition, meaning that if the district didn't offer a plan, folks would have retired anyway, so we do not take credit for that. We factor in that cost, as well as the future loss of natural attrition, meaning that folks that would have retired in later years, we're simply speeding up the process, so we factor that into consideration as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're on a roll, I know. PARS commission, 5%, is included within the 80% cost that the district is paying, right?
No, the 80% is the separate amount, and then 5% of that would be, whatever that contribution is our fee on top of that. But that's factored in.
5% of the 80.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's not on top of the 80, right? So if someone's at $100,000, it's just for their last.
Yeah, so 100,000, 80%, 80,000, and then 5% of that would be.
Wait, did you
Yeah.
say 5% of the 80%? That's what I thought you said earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So the cost to the district is the 80. It's not 80 plus the 5%, or am I not understanding you correctly?
The cost of the annuity purchase is the 80%,
Yeah.
but the overall cost to the district is the 80 plus the 5%, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And that's the line item retirement incentive cost, that we're looking at here.
Okay. So it's the 80%
Plus PARS fees, yes.
plus PARS fees.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And then the last factor on that is just the savings due to non-replacement. So if you don't replace some of those retiring positions, that would be additional savings to the district. And from that, we try to determine, is there a net savings associated with this incentive, or is there a cost associated with that? And that's what we would present at the end of the enrollment window. Next couple slides get into the demographics of the group. So for the teachers or the certificate of non-management, with that eligibility for STIRS, there are 70 eligible employees. This just provides sort of a breakdown of that grouping. Average age of that group is about 60 years old. And the next slide is that fiscal summary of savings. So, looking at our model, we show this over a 1, 3, and 5-year period. The top line, 100% replacement. Let me back up. At the 80% level of benefit, we would project that 16 retirements would take place, which is about almost 23% of the eligible group. If 16 folks took the incentive and the district replaced all 16 positions, that top line is the fiscal impact of that based on the averages of the group, where we would project that there would be savings over 5 years of about $289,000. And then what we do to further break it down is show, of those 16 positions, if you didn't replace portions of that or numbers, additional savings can be achieved because you're not replacing those positions. Next slide is the same thing except for the classified.
So can we go back to that slide?
Absolutely.
Sorry. So, and what are you using as an assumption of the replacement cost?
So the replacement salary, I think for the teachers, we used $75,000 based on, I think, information provided by the district.
Okay, because presumably those would be teachers who would be less expensive.
Correct, yeah.
Because they're less experienced.
Less experience, yes.
Right. All right.
The next slide is just the same sort
I
of.
hate to do this to you, but
Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask this question again because I've already Can you explain again why the third column is higher?
Sure. So sort of, we're looking at the progression of years, not only the first year of savings with, if you look at the compensation differential and factor in the costs, but then also out years 3 and 5. And in those out years, because we've sped up the attrition, we're sort of expediting those retirements. That cost is sort of catching up, and the differential is narrowing. So that's why you have that sort of decrease. And you also have sort of the cost of the incentive being spread out over 5 years, so you still have that cost. So our model is sort of showing the results over a 5-year period, because I think beyond 5 years, savings would increase, but it's very difficult for districts to sort of look out that far ahead and not change assumptions and try to assume that things are not going to change. It's too hard to predict, so we just showed it over the 5-year period. Classified non-management, I think there are 69 that fall into that group. Average age is similar, of age 60. And then the next slide is the fiscal summary of that. At 100% replacement, we are assuming that if an 80% level of benefit is offered, 18 would take the incentive or would retire. And if all 18 positions were replaced, there would be a cost associated with that group. And that's sort of typical of what we see amongst all school districts. You don't have the same salary schedule or scale or differential that you do with a certificated group. So because of that, there's a cost associated with the classified non-management group. But the replacement scenarios that we break down shows that, if there are non-replacements of those positions, then that cost can be either reduced or flipped to a savings depending upon the number of positions not replaced. So it's sort of to give you sort of scale or idea of the impact of this group, where at full replacement there would be a cost, but at non-replacement of positions that would either minimize the cost, or reduce the cost, or change to a savings. And then this last slide is just the projected.
Sorry, I'm going to ask you this.
Of course.
Stop you again. So, just to make sure that we're clear, what we're doing is what we're being asked to do this evening is to start the process, effectively to authorize the district to make the offer, but we're not binding the district to the plan until we hear, we learn how many people wish to participate, and then we rely on you to do the financial analysis, and then we make our decision based on that financial analysis as to whether savings can be achieved or not.
Yes, that is correct.
And we also have the ability, as I understand it, the district will have the ability to go ahead with, for example, with either the teachers or the classified, but not go right with one or the other, but not necessarily both.
Correct, yeah. You will have that ability based on the post-analysis to determine, did we meet our fiscal and operational goals for each individual group, and does it make sense for the district to move forward with that or to rescind the offering?
Are these so you had an assumption based, which is, I assume, based on your, past performance, if you will, that there's going to be, with respect to the teachers, that there would be 16 teachers that would participate, right?
Yeah, and that's strictly sort of based on our experience of the level of benefit being offered and looking at the demographics of the group. Obviously, we don't know your specific group. It can be higher, it could be lower. There are a lot of factors that go into why a person chooses to retire. These are all individual decisions, but sort of based on the level of benefit, we would expect that 16 would take the offering. And the numbers may change slightly because you may get 15 but have the same amount of savings or additional savings because maybe you get the higher end folks that are taking the plan. But we try to be realistic with our projections and not be overly optimistic or rosy and say, hey, you're going to get 40 retirements and millions of savings. That would not benefit anyone. We're trying to provide the district with a realistic projection of what would happen if the district offered that, so that the district can offer a successful retirement incentive.
And we're not getting billed for this initial analysis? These
No,
are just
correct.
projections?
Yeah, these are projections
and
as part of.
Depending on what the actuals come back with, then we decide.
Yeah, so part of our service is we provide this upfront complimentary
So we're just-
analysis.
that's helping us decide whether it's
Right.
worth taking the
Yeah,
next step.
yeah, correct.
That's all it's really
Yeah.
doing. But we'll really find out after, if we choose to go forward, we'll find out how many people up for
Correct, yeah.
retirement and what their
Yeah.
pay grade is and all that.
Mhm.
I think, aren't we charged $5,000 for the analysis, though?
No, the analysis is complimentary. If the district
Yeah, if we don't go
decides to adopt the resolution to go forward with the offering, then our fees would kick in, which is that 5% of contributions if the plan moves forward. If, let's say, you go through the offering and at the close of the window, participation was poor, or there were costs associated with the plan, and the district said, hey, this doesn't meet our fiscal and operational goals, we're going to rescind the plan, then our cancellation fee of $5,000 would kick in. And that's just sort of to help recoup some of our costs for going through the process of administering the plan and trying to move forward with it.
Okay, thank you.
Is it, I don't see it, but maybe there's something that I'm not, it wouldn't be the first time I didn't see something, is if this ends up being more heavily subscribed than your projection of 16, right? Let's say we had 25 teachers who are interested in taking advantage of this. Is there an inflection point where it becomes less fiscally advantageous because of the larger size of the participant, or a larger number of participants?
Yeah, sort of. The idea with the incentive is that you're trying to entice folks to retire earlier than you would, and in so you're trying to balance the benefit level and vice versa, the cost of that benefit being offered. And I think what we looked at was that the 80% was sort of a good point where you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak. But yeah, obviously, maybe if there's X amount above and beyond, it could be maybe a little more costly. But I think we would expect savings associated with it because of the salary differential for that group. I don't think we looked at quite specific, 25 retirements or whatever, but I think we're confident with the level. I think.
What about, okay, stupid question here, but what about, all right, so if we get more folks who are probably less than 60, younger than 60, we're going to be on the hook for the health benefits until they're 65, right?
60 to 65 for the contract, not before.
Okay.
They could theoretically purchase Cobra,
Oh,
but
okay.
that'd be at their expense until they hit 60. Then by contract, we cover 60 to 65.
Would that skew that number of 60 to 65 if we had more than the 16? Although I don't think we, yeah, we could. We could. Would it cost us, I mean, would that be a factor, that health benefit from 60 to 65 if we had more than 16, for example? Would we know that? I mean, wouldn't that be costly?
No, the district's obligated per contract to cover employee benefits from age 60 to 65 regardless of incentive or no incentive.
And that cost is already in the budget.
Yeah, and that's already baked into.
Okay,
Corporate
thank you,
centers.
thank you.
Do we have any public comment or any other comments before we talk specifics about the resolution? Because I have a hunch we want to revise the resolution language. That's what I was just asking, yeah. Do anyone have any public comment? Students? So in that case, if there's no public comment, why don't we move on to discussing specifics of the resolution? Yeah, so Tara will get up and speak that. Thank you very much for all the explanation, and all the material was very helpful,
Oh, you're welcome.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. So what we are asking of the board tonight is to pass a resolution that would allow us to open this incentive to our employees. As you know, this would just be an exploration. There's no obligation for the district to move forward until a final analysis is done, and that is all predicated on the fiscal benefit to the district. And so the resolution you have before you would, as we said, allow us to provide information to eligible employees and begin collecting names of participants, potential participants. A few sort of bits of housekeeping around that. The way this would work is if an employee chose to take the incentive is in lieu of all other benefits, all other incentives, not benefits, all other incentives, even those in the contract. They would write a letter of intent to retire under the incentive. Should the incentive not go, should the board decide that it is not advantageous for the district to do so in January, and they say, you all say, no, thank you, those letters are automatically rescinded. So those letters are pending the movement forward of this incentive. However, should the board decide that the incentive is going to move forward and you are going to offer it, those letters become binding. And the retirement is effective June 30th, 2019. So I know there was some questions on the resolution, number 18-14.
Michael, I think you had a suggestion for
Yeah, I just,
language.
right, I just wanted to make it, I have my question was, could we make the resolution clearer? Because we currently offer a cash incentive. And I know that we've already had some staff members who've put their name on the list to receive this cash incentive as in connection with their retirements, and I wanted to make it clear that a little bit clearer than I think it is currently, this resolution, that this new retirement incentive that we're discussing would replace the existing cash option available. So I guess my suggestion would be to amend the second recital, the second whereas, if you will, so that it would say, whereas we'd had it before.
Here, I
Tara.
have it.
I don't know whether you wrote it down or not. Right. Whereas this incentive would replace all existing cash option retirement incentives available to employees. So, Mary, so that would replace the second whereas. Should I read it again, or? Okay. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that
Any
change.
other, I like that improvement. Any other comments to the text of the resolution? Okay, with that said,
It
would anyone
was
like,
you ran it past attorneys.
We did.
It's all good. Okay.
anyone like to entertain a motion to pass the resolution?
Yeah. Okay, I would move that we, that the board adopt resolution number 18-14 as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So the next agenda item is local control and accountability plan. Local indicators update.
Okay. So as part of our local control and accountability plan, which we presented earlier in the fall, we have we have areas that are called local indicators. And what they mean by that is we actually provide the data. It's not necessary, it's not from CASP, it's not plugged in on the state's end. We actually go in and we share data that we have gathered locally. So for example, the school climate, Mary, if you could scroll up really quickly. Oh, I just want to point out, this is not our doing. The dashboard release where it says spring 2017 is incorrect. It should say spring 2018. So I'm not sure why that says that. But anyway, so if you scroll down, it'll tell you, it says, so this is the standard that it's school climate, priority area 6. And the local educational agency administers a local climate survey at least every other year that provides a valid measure of perceptions of school safety and connectedness. So we do the California Healthy Kids Survey every other year, and this year we actually did a local survey as well. So where it says LEA submission, that is the data that we have provided to say that we have met this area. And this data from our California Healthy Kids Survey, we then use to inform how we, what programs we offer, what things we're going to target necessarily in wellness, in social issues, what kind of supports we think kids need, what kind of outreach we're going to do to parents and things like that. So that all of this data come from our California Healthy Kids or the local data, the local SurveyMonkey data that we gather. And so this is all part of the dashboard that is, Mary, if you could go back to, if you go home. Oh, so you're gonna have to type in TAM again. The full dashboard is going to be released hopefully in the next month, and that will have all of our updated information. It'll have all of our local indicator data. It'll have our college and career readiness data, which has not been released. It's all embargoed still. So the full dashboard will be released within the next month or so. We've just gained access to the embargoed version. So if you, this is the home page. If you scroll down, this is the data that will be updated. And if you, so if you scroll a little more. So these are the local indicators that we were just talking about. So you can go in and click on these. These are just straight measures of how many teachers are working within their assigned area. And we gather that through for CBEDS every year. How well are we doing with implementation of Common Core, Next Generation Science Standard? That's a self-evaluation of where we are in the implementation cycle. Parent engagement, do we have LCAP committees? What are we doing to do outreach? What kind of communication? So you can see where these align with our LCAP goals. Our LCAP goals address making sure we have solid teachers, that we have highly qualified and trained teachers, that we have a broad course of study that align to California state standards. Our LCAP goal number 3 is around communication. And then our wellness goal. So our goals all align with these local indicators, and these are measures that we use internally to determine how we're doing. Then we take that data, we bring it back to our LCAP committee, and we look at ways that we can implement our LCAP action plans. Yeah.
Tara, remind me why chronic absenteeism is NA.
It just hasn't been released yet.
Oh.
It'll be part of the full release.
But we submit that data.
That's part, the state fills that in. So
Okay.
these up here, those state indicators is data that we are required to submit to the state through both CBEDS and CalPAS, all these acronyms that we are, we have various submissions, and they take that data and they provide our little trivial pies. But so, for example, Mary, could you click on graduation rates? So you can click on it and then it takes you deeper. And this is all data that the state has culled from what we've given to them. So for example, our performance is a little bit needs to improve with our socioeconomic disadvantage. There was 92 students. So while the status is high, it's a high graduation rate, it declined. which is why we are yellow. Because you want to be high and maintaining or increasing. So this was medium and maintained, so you want to be high and maintained. And then you see here, very high and increased. But we don't have enough students to get it high for that one.
Well, how many students do you need for a pie?
Well, the next one down has 35, so somewhere between 26 and 35.
It would be interesting to see that pie color.
For
Yeah.
things like students with disabilities, what is that measuring? So what would be a good...
An IEP, an individual ed plan, someone who is in special education.
Yeah,
Okay.
but is it good if it's like higher percentage or a lower percentage? Like
Yeah.
what would mean we're better
So this,
with that?
we would want this to be high, because it's
Okay.
graduation rates.
Oh,
and
these are
then
graduation
maintaining or
rates.
increasing.
Okay.
Yeah. So high, I believe, is 90% or above.
So what does it look like if you click on students with disabilities? What
Yep.
what additional information is available?
Go up one more, yeah, sorry. So then this is the homepage just for students with disabilities.
I see.
So that gives you the suspension rate. And then it'll eventually give you those last two indicators.
So, Tara, do you recommend as trustees that we get on this dashboard and get comfortable with all this stuff? I mean, you're presenting it to us now, but I know, full disclosure, I have
Yeah.
not been
you know,
jumping around
no.
on this.
And I don't know, the dashboard is meant to be a tool for parents and the public to say, how is that school district doing? Right? It's supposed to be a public measure of how we're doing. You know, what's the school climate like? You know, how are their graduation rates? We give you all of this data in various times throughout the year, so you have it. This would be helpful if you were like, you know what, I wonder, you know, if somebody said to you, what are the suspension rates? You could say, you know, if you go to the dashboard, you can see it all. I don't know that you need to know all this, but it's a good place to direct people if they're interested in very specific information about performance. You know, we used to have these long, and we do still have some of them, but those long reports on, you know, that were on for each school site on how we were doing that. The dashboard is basically replacing, because this is for TAM district, but we can drill down to school in all of this. So the idea is that all of this data is available, it's transparent, it's disaggregated, and it's broken down by site.
I know I'm a short timer, so I'm thinking about, you know, the people that will follow. If I, as a trustee, have a question about something, I'm thinking it might be a good protocol for us to see if we can get our questions answered on the dashboard before bugging you. I know you have a pile of things. That might be something that the upcoming board can talk about as a protocol, or
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how, as trustees, we can utilize this tool
Right.
So we can do our jobs
That's
better.
a good point, yeah, and I think it is a good place if you're wondering if we've improved or if there's a trend. That's the other thing the dashboard is going to help you with. And once the full dashboard is released, and this will be the first time it's fully released with all of the data, with the chronic absenteeism and college readiness, and the new landing page looks like little odometers. So you'll be looking at this, but it's little odometers for each of the measures, telling us where we are overall. Yeah, I think they've been playing around with, like, we have pies, and then we have, you know, 5 by 5, and then we have odometers. But the odometers is pretty clear, because then it's just one landing page that's similar to this that you can then. So I think it's it's both a good snapshot, and then you can drill down. So if you had that level of question, it's a good tool.
I'm just thinking about my friend Barbara over here and her attendance
Yeah.
interest. You could get a lot of data.
Yeah, and how we're doing with all student groups. You know, it's the first time we've had this sort of very transparent, disaggregated data. Whereas in the past, some districts, some districts, not to name any, have sort of, on the surface, looked like they were high-performing. But when you start to peel back some of the layers, you realize high-performing for some students and not others. And this sort of shows you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And when did you say this is going to be publicly available?
Well,
You didn't-
in the next month. Yeah, when the state releases it. You know, and I love, they're still, you know, we're in our 4th year of this, but they're still working out some of the kinks. You know, for example, the Healthy Kids survey data from the last spring's administration is still embargoed, but the data for our local indicators is due on the 16th of November, which is problematic because then we have to use 2-year-old data. If they're not, if the most recent data are embargoed, then we can't use it publicly. So, you know what I mean? They're still working out some of those kinks where it's not that helpful to be using a 2-year-old lagging indicator. So they're still working out some of those kinks. Yeah.
What's the district's reason for like embargoing the data?
Oh, we didn't embargo it,
Oh,
the
we don't?
state did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That just means like the public can't
Right.
can't access it.
Yeah, embargoed means that it's released privately for districts to preview in a certain amount of time, but we're not allowed to share it publicly.
Okay.
Is it a validation, data validation process they're going through? Isn't it,
Yeah.
basically?
Yes.
Can you go back to the dashboard release date? It says spring 2017, but it's, are we looking at spring 2017 or spring 2018?
I believe we're looking at spring 2018.
Yeah, 'cause
So-
it's 4483 enrollment.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about too, Leslie, is the enrollment number seems low for
Can you go
2018.
to fall? It should be, well, the other thing that's happened in the past is they've released the dashboard and then something went wrong, so they pulled it back. So it might be, so can you scroll down to, but there's,
I mean, we're at
scroll all the way
5,000
down, all the way down, all the way down.
that much. We're at 4,800 last year.
But it had, so where I'm confused is it had the local indicators at the bottom,
And now the enrollment's
and I don't think we had
4693.
them for 2017, yeah.
I
So
remember
these
dropping that much.
this is the dashboard a little bit in flux. But the local indicators I showed you were for the most recent,
Okay.
which has happened to us before too. So it's, and the enrollment is something that they've struggled with a lot.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right for last
You know, I
year.
remember at one year there was like 8,000 kids were like, nope, never 8,000 kids. Slow down. So it's something, sometimes wires get crossed in the back end and sometimes we end up with other people. But there's no approval or anything for you. This is just a presentation for you to see the dashboard and know that the local indicators are there and that the entire dashboard will be public within a month or so and when it is fully public, I will come back so that I can show you the full dashboard.
We'll let you know when it's on the agenda.
And then Chuck and Michael and I can look at it
That's right.
in our jammies at
That's
home on a
right.
Tuesday night.
Oh, no, we want you here.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
No, we want you here, and your jammies is fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Item C, Fiscal Advisory Committee and Budget Update. I don't think you can sit down.
And I'm back. Hi. So this is one of our standing items. We wanted to let you know that we did meet with the fiscal advisory again, and actually it was our second joint meeting with our fiscal advisory and LCAP, or Local Control and Accountability Plan committees. Those are both advisory boards or committees. And this past meeting on November 5th, just before the election, so we didn't know. Yay. So what they worked on that night was they wrapped up looking at the broad stakeholder input, looked for areas of alignment across all of the input. You know, where did we see like strong alignment of priorities, and then where did we see some misalignment? And we sort of dug into those. And then we really firmly set what we call our solution criteria, which is the measures against which they will decide if they have made a strong recommendation. So the sentence is, we know we'll have made a strong recommendation if, and there's sentences, one of them is that it gives us a net of a $3 million savings, that they align with our LCAP goals and priorities, that it takes equity into account as one of the goals and visions of the district. Right. Those are the main three. So we spent some time really establishing what the solution criteria would be and what it would look like, and because that's really going to be our backstop when we then start looking at, or when the committee starts looking at their recommendation. Are they meeting the criteria that have been established? So that was the work that they did. We have another meeting on November 26th where they will start really refining their recommendation, because they will have a recommendation ready to go out for more input in early January.
And
Yeah.
the recommendation is what should we cut,
The recommendation is cost reduction.
Okay.
Yes, so luckily, the night after we met, Measure J passed. Yay. And, I'm at a loss for words, the gratitude, truly, for the board, for all the work that you did in putting into this and all the thought and the real deliberation you put into this measure to make sure that it was one that the community would support and support strongly, and they did, 72%. I think that is a testament to your hard work in making sure that you were really listening to the community, a testament to the Measure J campaign, particularly Dana Linkersteel and Karen Lovica, who chaired that committee and worked tirelessly with many of you. Laura with the endorsements, and Leslie with the precinct walks. Barbara and I walked many a street of Mill Valley together. Just all of the support and all of the volunteering and the organization and I don't know what you're doing with your free time, hopefully reading again or something, like you've rediscovered the novel. But it was a Herculean effort, and so we wanted to take this time to really acknowledge that and to say thank you. Karen was going to be here but couldn't make it, and Dana particularly, that this has been a huge relief and is, while we still have work ahead of us, this is a tremendous boost to the district and a very necessary one for us to maintain the kind of programming we really, pride ourselves on. So thank you. Anything to add, colleagues? Thanks. So that's our fiscal advisory update.
I have one question, and when you said they'll refine the recommendations at the next meeting, and then it'll go out to a group for further input. So does that mean come January their recommendations will become public, or is it
No, it'll be public.
And
Yeah.
you're throwing out a bigger net to get some more
So
feedback?
so as part of our plan, Corbett and I will be going back on the road to visit each of the sites. We will do that on January 7th, 8th, what day is it? 7th? On our staff development day. We have booked out an hour at the sites to present the staff with the recommendation and provide them time to digest it and give feedback. And then we will do the evening community meetings so that people can hopefully see their suggestions and the work come through, and also be able to provide another round of input before I bring a recommendation to the board in a workshop on February 12th.
Very good. Thank you so much. It's so much of it's the process, and we can stand behind anything if we can back up the process, regardless of what the
No surprises.
recommendation. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and so really appreciate that. And thank you too for all the work you did during the parcel TAC measure. I said parcel TAC. Whatever that is.
That too.
Yeah, that too. But I think we all agree too. One side benefit is that Whereas when we started this, the community was not as nearly educated on a lot of the good work that the district's doing, and it afforded us the ability to learn the way to communicate with the community and have more two-way communication, which I know we're going to be continuing. And so thank you very much, very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Nope? Okay. I think you can sit down now. I think it might be Lars getting up. I don't think you do either. I don't see anybody here, but now we'll recess and move to the public hearing for Tamalpais Union High School District Sunshine Articles for CSEA negotiations. No one in the public wants to say anything, so we're back to the regular session. Why don't we now pull the item from the consent agenda that we pulled? I'm not saying that quite right. We remove 13D, which is approved revised course of study for nonfiction 1-2, and I think, Chuck, you had
Yeah,
a
I just had
question.
a quick question. Has nonfiction always been a prerequisite for advanced journalism?
Yes.
That's all. That's it.
Okay, good. Would you like to make the motion to pass
Yeah.
item D
I
then?
move that we approve the revised course of study for nonfiction 1-2.
Do we have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I had to stop and think if it was a roll call. There's no resolution. Aye. Thank you. That passed. Now we'll move on to the trustee reports, and bonjour. Should we start with you?
He's been yawning a little bit.
I haven't yawned at all. That's not true. That is not true.
You have been yawning.
No, that's just heavy breathing.
That could be a problem, too.
I have nothing to report.
Do you, Madam former President, who's on her last meeting?
I attended the fiscal advisory meeting, and it is all about process. And our staff is doing a great job with the process, and the whole team is really terrific. Mostly I just sit there and keep my mouth shut because I'm recused from all the exercises. So it's interesting to observe everyone working. Was so thrilled that Measure J passed. Tara is very humble, but she and her team were definitely part of the high pass rate. I think people have more confidence in what we're doing with a different leadership team. And I don't mean that as a slight on the people that were here before, but I think there's just, the momentum is really great, and I think that was reflected in the turnout. So thank you, Tara, for your leadership. And then finally, the day after Election Day, I went to Drake, and I watched the Tahitian dancers again, because when they were at our board meeting 2 weeks ago, I just felt so happy with all the bad things that are happening all over the place. To see these young people with so much joy, I mean, it lifted me up, so I wanted more of that. So I went to the Drake Theater. It was packed. I looked for you, Maddie. I didn't see you there, but it was so fun to see. They danced, I think, a lot more, and then at the end, they pulled up a lot of the Drake students to each of the dancers plucked a Drake student out of the audience, and they came up, and everyone was trying to emulate the moves, and then finally Liz and Jasper came up, and they gave them gifts, and then Liz danced with the lead boy, and Jasper with the lead girl, and that was highly entertaining. So it just brought a smile to my face, and I saw Chuck at the end. Chuck, unfortunately, I think you missed much of it, but that was such a with the few weeks I have left on the board, I want to do more of that kind of thing, because it just feels good. So I encourage you to do the same, you two guys, if you can.
So, I have nothing to report other than, I'm not sure what the word is, but it's very reassuring to me that we have at least a teacher and a principal who are willing to publicly embarrass themselves, and look like klutzes, risk looking like klutzes. I'm not going to say they were, but I think it speaks well of Jasper.
Yeah. He was in hiking boots.
And Liz, to get up on that stage. And I did catch the end of that. That's when I came in.
Barbara, do you have anything to report?
Yes, I, under the category of feel good, I met with Maddie. We discussed the potential of our meeting with the rest of the student trustees, and we have a meeting set for a dinner meeting for all of us. I haven't reached Luke yet, though. Just Corey, just heads up. And I have nothing to report in the past, but I'm going to JLAC tomorrow, educational effectiveness, SARB on Thursday, and then the end of the month, CSBA delegation, the delegate assembly. So I'll have more to report next meeting.
I don't have a lot to report. I, like some of you, have spent time kind of enjoying myself. Went to a TAM theater production of Our Town, but I left at intermission, not because it wasn't good, but because I was really tired. But that I do want to mention that it just kind of came together that how lucky we are, because especially now, everything that is going on every day when you turn on the news, that working and hearing from the young adults, the students, is so inspiring. And I think you guys are going to make everything so much better. That it's the one ray of hope. I was talking to my aunt, who I haven't spoken with in over 6 months, and she's 84, and my uncle's 93, and she was commenting on that. That's the only thing that's keeping her going, is that she thinks that the young people, she's got grandchildren that are, college, high school age. She says, they just have it together. They're gonna make all this better, what this mess we're sitting in right now. So we're lucky as school board members. We get to come and hear all the great things you're doing when you report out. It's very impressive. And I have to tell you, I got tears in my eyes when I saw, for the first time I saw pictures of the students out in front of the schools holding Measure J. It really got me choked up. And then I drove down really quick to see them at Tam High holding up the thank yous. And we're pretty lucky. So thank you for everything that you do. I think we're on a good path here in the district. And thank you again, Tara, for your leadership. So with that, we'll move on to board communications. I don't see it here, but we did receive one communication. I guess there it is, regarding gun education, and I know that the district is following up on looking into that. And let's see, I think we're now at public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there any public comment? Anyone wish to make a public comment on any item that we haven't discussed tonight? You sure? Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.